Chapter 1. Once I was living in an orphanage in the mountains, and I shouldn't have been, and I almost caused a riot. It was because of the carrot. You know how when a nun serves you very hot soup from a big metal pot, and she makes you lean in close so she doesn't drip, and the steam from the pot makes your glasses go all misty, and you can't wipe them because you're holding your dinner bowl, and the fog doesn't clear even when you pray to God, Jesus, the Virgin Mary, the Pope, and Adolf Hitler? That's happening to me. Somehow I find my way towards my table. I use my ears for navigation. Dodie, who always sits next to me, is a loud slurper because of his crooked teeth. I hold my bowl above my head so other kids can't pinch my soup while I'm fogged up, and I use Dodie's slurping noises to guide me in. I feel for the edge of the table and put my bowl down and wipe my glasses. That's when I see the carrot. It's floating in my soup, huge among the flecks of cabbage and the tiny blobs of pork fat and the few lonely lentils and the bits of grey plaster from the kitchen ceiling. A whole carrot. I can't believe it. 3 years and 8 months I've been in this orphanage and I haven't had a whole carrot in my dinner bowl once. Neither has anyone else. Even the nuns don't get whole carrots, and they get bigger servings than us kids because they need the extra energy for being holy. We can't grow vegetables up here in the mountains, not even if we pray a lot. It's because of the frosts. So if a whole carrot turns up in this place, first it gets admired, then it gets chopped into enough pieces that 62 kids, 11 nuns, and 1 priest can all have a bit. I stare at the carrot. At this moment, I'm probably the only kid in Poland with a whole carrot in his dinner bowl. For a few seconds, I think it's a miracle. Except it can't be, because miracles only happened in ancient times, and this is 1942. Then I realise what the carrot means, and I have to sit down quick before my legs give way. I can't believe it. At last. Thank you, God, Jesus, Mary, the Pope, and Adolf Hitler. I've waited so long for this. It's a sign. This carrot is a sign from Mum and Dad. They've sent my favourite vegetable to let me know their problems are finally over, to let me know that after 3 long years and 8 long months, things are finally improving for Jewish booksellers, to let me know they're coming to take me home. Yes! Dizzy with excitement, I stick my fingers into the soup and grab the carrot. Luckily, the other kids are concentrating on their own dinners, spooning their soup up hungrily and peering into their bowls in case there's a speck of meat there or a speck of rat poo. I had to move fast. If the others see my carrot, there'll be a jealousy riot. This is an orphanage. Everyone here is meant to have dead parents. If the other kids find out mine aren't dead, they'll get really upset, and the nuns here could be in trouble with the Catholic head office in Warsaw for breaking the rules. Felix Saint Stanislaus. I almost dropped the carrot. It's Mother Minka's voice booming at me from the high table. Everyone looks up. Don't fiddle with your food, Felix, says Mother Minka. If you found an insect in your bowl, just eat it and be grateful. The other kids were all staring at me. Some are grinning, others are frowning and wondering what's going on. I try not to look like a kid who's just slipped a carrot into his pocket. I'm so happy I don't care that my fingers are stinging from the hot soup. Mum and Dad are coming at last. They must be down in the village. They must have sent the carrot up here with Father Ludwig to surprise me. When everyone has gone back to eating, I give Mother Minka a grateful smile. It was good of her to make a joke to draw attention away from my carrot. There were 2 reasons Mum and Dad chose this orphanage, because it was the closest and because of Mother Minka's goodness. When they were bringing me here, they told me how in all the years Mother Minka was a customer of their bookshop, back before things got difficult for Jewish booksellers, she never once criticised a single book. Mother Minka didn't see my smile. She's too busy glaring at St. Casimir's table, so I gave Sister Elwira a grateful smile too. Sister Elwira doesn't notice either because she's too busy serving the last few kids and being sympathetic to a girl who's crying about the amount of ceiling plaster in her soup. They're so kind, these nuns. I'll miss them when Mum and Dad take me home and I stop being Catholic and go back to being Jewish. Don't you want that? Says a voice next to me. Dodie is staring at my bowl. His is empty. He's sucking his teeth and I can see he's hoping my soup is up for grabs. Over his shoulder, Marek and Telik are sneering. Grow up, Dodek, said Marek, but in his eyes there's a flicker of hope that he might get some too. Part of me wants to give my soup to Dodie because his mum and dad died of sickness when he was 3. But these are hard times and food is scarce, and even when your tummy's stuffed with joy, you still have to force it down. I force it down. Dodie grins. He knew I'd want it. The idea that I wouldn't is so crazy it makes us both chuckle. Then I stop. I'll have to say goodbye to everyone here soon. That makes me feel sad. And when the other kids see Mum and Dad are alive, they'll know I haven't been truthful with them. That makes me feel even sadder. I tell myself not to be silly. It's not like they're my friends. Not really. You can't have friends when you're leading a secret life. With friends, you might get too relaxed and blurt stuff out, and then they'll know you've just been telling them a story. But Dodie feels like my friend. While I finish my soup, I try to think of a good thing I can do for him. Something to show him I'm glad I know him. Something to make his life here a bit better. After I'm back on my own, home with my own books and my own mum and dad. I know exactly what I can do for Dodie. Now's the moment. The bath selection has just started. Mother Minka is standing at the front checking Joseph all over for dirt. He's shivering. We're all shivering. The bathroom is freezing, even now in summer. Probably because it's so big and below ground level. In ancient times, when this convent was first built, this bathroom was probably used for ice skating. Mother Minka flicks her tassel towards the dormitory. Joseph grabs his clothes and hurries away relieved. Lucky pig, shivers Dodie. I step out of the queue and go up to Mother Minka. Excuse me, Mother, I say. She doesn't seem to notice me. She's peering hard at Boris, who's got half the playing field under his fingernails and toenails, and a fair bit of it in his armpits. I can see Mother Minka is about to flick her tassel towards the bath. Oh no, I'm almost too late. Then Mother Minka turns to me. What is it? She says. Please, Mother, I said hurriedly, can Dodek be first in the bath? The boys behind me in the queue started muttering. I don't glance back at Dodie. I know he'll understand what I'm trying to do. Why? Says Mother Minka. I step closer. This is between me and Mother Minka. You know how Dodek's parents died of sickness, I say. Well, Dodek's decided he wants to be a doctor and devote his life to wiping out sickness all over the world. The thing is, as a future doctor, he's got to get used to being really hygienic and washing himself in really hot and clean water. I hold my breath and hope Dodie didn't hear me. He actually wants to be a pig slaughterer and I'm worried he might say something. Mother Minka looks at me. Get to the back of the queue, she says. He really needs to be first in the bath every week, I say, as a doctor. Now, booms Mother Minka. I don't argue. You don't with Mother Minka. Nuns can have good hearts and still be violent. As I pass Dodie, he gives me a grateful look. I give him an apologetic one. I know he wouldn't mind about the doctor story. He likes my stories. Plus, I think he'd be a good doctor. Once, after he pulled the legs off a fly, he managed to stick a couple back on. Oh, this stone floor is really cold on bare feet. That's something Dodie could do in the future. Design bathroom heating systems. I bet by the year 2000, every bathroom in the world will be heated, floors and everything, with robots to pick the twigs and grit out of the bathwater. Look at that. Boris is the first one in and the water's brown already. I can imagine what it'll be like when I finally get in. Cold, with more solid bits in it than our soup. I close my eyes and think about the baths Mum and Dad used to give me in front of the fire with clean water and lots of warm, wet cuddles and lots of stories. I can't wait to have a bath like that again. Hurry up, Mum and Dad. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions before we move on to chapter 2. Can you describe, so maybe think of a few adjectives of your first impressions of Felix, of Mother Minka, and maybe one other character that's introduced in this first chapter. And the second question that I'd like you to think about is, what is the significance of the carrot, and what are Felix's plans for it? Okay, so you can maybe have a little chat about those questions, and then when you're ready, move on to chapter 2. Chapter 2. Once I stayed awake all night, waiting for Mum and Dad to arrive. They didn't. They haven't. But it's all right. Nobody drives up that narrow rocky road from the village in the dark unless they're Father Ludwig. He says God helps him and his horse with the steering. Mum and Dad were never very religious, so they probably wouldn't risk it. They'll be here once it's daylight. What I'm worrying about now is whether they'll recognise me after 3 years and 8 months. You know how when you have a haircut or a tooth comes out and your parents carry on about how you must be the kid who belongs to the shoe mender down the street? Well, I've changed even more than that. When I arrived at this place, I was plump and with little freckles and 2 gaps. Now I'm about twice as tall, with glasses and a complete set of teeth. I press my face against the cold window pane over my bed and watch the sky start to go pale and tell myself not to be silly. I remind myself what Mum and Dad said when they brought me here. "We won't forget you," Mum whispered through her tears. I knew exactly what she was saying, that they wouldn't forget to come and get me once they'd fixed up their bookshop troubles. We'll never forget you, Dad said in a husky voice, and I knew exactly what he was saying too, that when they come, even if I've changed a lot, they'll still know it's me. The sun is peeping up behind the convent gates. Now it's getting light outside and I don't feel so anxious. Plus, if all else fails, I've got my notebook. The cover's a bit stained from when I had to snatch it away from Marek and Boris in class. It was to stop them reading it, and some ink got spilled, but apart from that, it looks exactly like it did when Mum and Dad gave it to me. It's the only notebook with a yellow cardboard cover in this whole place, so they'll definitely recognise it if I hold it in an obvious way when they arrive. And when they read it, they'll know I'm their son, because it's full of stories I've written about them, about their travels all over Poland, discovering why their bookshop supplies suddenly went so unreliable. Dad wrestling a wild boar that's been eating authors, Mum rescuing a book printer who's been kidnapped by pirates, her and Dad crossing the border into Germany and finding huge piles of really good books propping up wobbly tables. All right, most of the stories are a bit exaggerated, but they'll still recognise themselves and know I'm their son. What's that sound? It's a car or truck, one of those ones that don't need a horse because they've got an engine. It's chugging up the hill. I can hear it getting closer. There go Sister Elwira and Sister Graziana across the courtyard to open the gates. Mum and Dad, you're here at last. I'm so excited. I'm steaming up the window and my glasses. I rub them both with my pyjama sleeve. A car rumbles into the courtyard. Mum and Dad must have swapped it for the old bookshop cart. Trust them, they've always been modern. They were the first booksellers in the whole district to have a ladder in their shop. I can hardly breathe. Half the dormitory are out of bed now, pressing their noses against the window too. Any second now, they'll all see Mum and Dad. Suddenly, I don't care if everyone does know my secret. Perhaps it'll give some of the other kids hope that the authorities might have made a mistake, and that their Mum and Dads might not be dead after all. That's strange. The car windows are steamed up so I can't see clearly, but it looks like there are more than 2 people in the car. Mum and Dad must have given Father Ludwig a lift, and a couple of his relatives who fancied a day out. I can't make out which ones are Mum and Dad. I hold my notebook up for them to see. The car doors open and the people get out. I stare, numb with disappointment. It's not Mum and Dad. It's just a bunch of men in suits with armbands. "Felix," says Dodie urgently, grabbing me as I hurry out of the dormitory. "I need your help." I give him a pleading look. Can't he see I'm doing something urgent too? Finding out from Mother Minka if Mum and Dad sent a note with the carrot saying exactly when they'll be arriving. I've got the carrot with me to to jog Mother Minka's memory. "It's Jankil," said Dodie. "He's hiding in the toilet." I sigh. Jankil's only been here 2 weeks and he's still very nervous of strangers. "Tell him there's nothing to worry about," I say to Dodie. "The men in the car are probably just officials from Catholic head office. They've probably just come to check that all our parents are dead. They'll be gone soon." I give a careless shrug so Dodie won't see how nervous I am about the officials and how much I'm desperately hoping Mother Minka remembers the story we agreed on about my parents, about how they were killed in a farming accident, tragically. "Jankil's not hiding from the men in the car," says Dodie. "He's hiding from the torture squad." Dodie points. Marek, Telik, Adok and Boris are crowding into the dormitory toilets. "Come on," says Dodie, "we've got to save him." Dodie's right. We can't leave Jankil at the mercy of the torture squad. Marek and the others have been after him since the day he arrived. He's their first new boy to torture in 3 years and 8 months. Since me. Dodie shoves the toilet door open. We go in. Marek, Telik, Adok and Boris have got Jankil on his knees. Jankil is pleading with them. His voice is echoing a bit because they've got his head half in the toilet. "Don't struggle," says Telik to Jankil. "This won't hurt." Telik's wrong. It will hurt. It hurt when they did it to me 3 years and 8 months ago. Having your head pushed down a toilet hole always hurts. "Wait!" I yell. The torture squad turn and look at me. I know that what I say next will either save Jankil or it won't. Desperately, I try to think of something good. "A horse crushed his parents," I say. Now the new kid is staring at me too. I grip my notebook hard and let my imagination take over. "A great big plough horse," I continue. "It had a heart attack in the mud and fell onto both his parents, and it was too heavy for him to drag off them, so he had to nurse them both through a whole day and a whole night while the life was slowly crushed out of them. And do you know what their dying words to their only son were?" I can see the torture squad haven't got a clue. Neither does the new kid. "They asked him to pray for them every day," I say, "at the exact time they died." I wait for the chapel bell to finish striking 7. "At 7 o'clock in the morning," I say. Everyone takes this in. The torture squad look uncertain, but they're not pushing anybody down the toilet, which is good. "That's just one of your stories," sneers Telik, but I can tell he's not so sure. "Quick," says Dodie, "I can hear Mother Minka coming." That's a story too, because Mother Minka is down in the courtyard with the head office officials, but Marek and the others look even more uncertain. They swap glances, then hurry out of the toilets. Dodie turns wearily to Jankil. "What did we tell you," says Dodie, "about not coming in here on your own?" Jankil opens his mouth to reply, then closes it again. Instead, he peers past us, trying to see down into the courtyard. "Have they gone?" he says. Dodie nods and points towards the dormitory. "Boris is putting mud in your bed," he says. "I mean the men in the car," says Jankil. He looks almost as scared now as he did with the torture squad. "They'll be gone soon," I say. "Mother Minka's dealing with them." Jankil starts to look a bit less nervous, but only a bit. I find myself wondering if he's got a secret alive parents too. "Thanks for saving me," he says. "That was a good story about my parents being crushed." "Sorry if it brought back sad memories," I say. "Nah," says Jankil. "My parents froze to death." I stare at him. If that's true, it's terrible. Their bath must have been outdoors or something. Jankil glances down at my notebook. "Do you make up lots of stories?" he asks. "Sometimes," I say. "I'm not very good at stories," he says. As we go out into the dormitory, I find myself wondering if Jankil is Jewish. He's got dark eyes like me, but I don't ask him. If he is, he wouldn't admit it. Not here. Dodie stays with Jankil, who's peering nervously out the window again, and I head off, hoping that Mother Minka has got rid of the official so I can ask her about Mum and Dad. As I hurry down the stairs, I glance out the window myself. In the courtyard, Mother Minka is having an argument with the men. She's waving her arms, which she only does when she's in a very bossy mood. I stop and stare. What's that smoke? It's a bonfire. The men are having a bonfire in the courtyard. Why are they doing that? It can't be for warmth. The sun's up now and it's going to be a hot day. I can see why Mother Minka's so angry. The smoke is going into the chapel and the classrooms and the girls' dormitory. Oh no, I've just seen what the men are burning. That's terrible. If Mum and Dad saw this, they'd be in tears. The other nuns are down there in the courtyard and some of them have got their faces in their hands. I'm feeling very upset myself. The men are burning books. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions now about chapter 2. So question 1, what memories does Felix have of his parents? And question 2, can you explain the importance of Felix's notebook? Okay, so you might like to just pause for a minute and answer those questions. And I'm going to read us a third chapter. Once I saw a customer years ago damaging books in Mum and Dad's shop, tearing pages out, screwing them up, shouting things I couldn't understand. Mum was crying, Dad was furious. So was I. When customers are unhappy, they should ask for a refund, not go mental. These men are just as bad. They're hurting books cruelly and viciously and laughing about it. Why? Just because Mother Minka's is a bit bossy, that's no reason to destroy the things she loves most in the world except God, Jesus, the Virgin Mary and the Pope and Adolf Hitler. Wait a minute, those wooden boxes the men are flinging around are book boxes from our library. I get it. Mother Minka was complaining to us library monitors only last week that the library was very messy and needed a tidy up. She must have got sick of waiting for us to do it and called in professional librarians in professional librarian armbands. They've reorganised the library and now they're burning the books that are left over. No wonder Mother Minka is so upset. I bet she didn't give them permission to do that. Me and Mum and Dad would have taken those books. We love all books, even old and tatty ones. I can't watch any more. I turn away from the smoke and flames and hurry down to Mother Minka's office. Rather than risk mentioning Mum and Dad out there, I'll wait for her to come back inside. I stand by her desk. Suddenly a voice yells at me. It's not Mother Minka, it's a man's voice, and he's shouting in a foreign language. I turn, trembling. In the doorway stands one of the librarians. He's glaring at me very angrily. This isn't a library book, I say, pointing to my notebook. It's my notebook. The librarian scowls and takes a step towards me. I'm confused. Why would Mother Minka call in foreign librarians? Perhaps people who don't speak Polish are faster library tidiers because they don't get tempted to read books before they tidy them. Mother Minka hurries into the room. She looks very unhappy. I'm starting to think this isn't a good time to ask her about Mum and Dad. What are you doing here? She demands. I can't tell her the truth in front of the librarian, so I try to tell her that I've come down to make sure none of the sparks from the fire blow in and singe her furniture or stationery. But at this moment, with her and the librarian glaring at me, I can't get the words out. I say. I remember now, Felix, says Mother Minka. I asked you to come down and collect your notebook. Now you've got it, go back upstairs. I stare at her confused. Why is she calling me Felix? My name's Felix. I don't wait to try and work it out. I head for the door. The librarian is still scowling at me. Mother Minka is still looking very stern. But also, I see as I brush past her, very worried. Suddenly she grabs my ear. I'll take you myself, she says. She drags me along the corridor, but instead of dragging me upstairs, she pulls the kitchen door open and bundles me inside. I've only been in the kitchen a few times before to trim mould off bread as a punishment for talking in class, and I'd forgotten what a great soupy smell there is in here. I don't have a chance to enjoy it today. Mother Minka has shut the door behind us and is crouching down so her face is level with mine. She's never done that before, ever. Why is she acting so strangely? Maybe whoever trimmed her bread for dinner last night didn't do a very good job. Dodie says eating bread mould can affect your brain. This must be terrible for you, she says. I wish you hadn't seen what they're doing out there. I didn't think those brutes would bother coming all the way up here, but it seems they go everywhere sooner or later. Librarians, I say, confused. Nazis, said Mother Minka. How they knew I had Jewish books here, I've no idea. But don't worry, they don't suspect you're Jewish. I stare at her. These Nazis, or whatever they're called, are going around burning Jewish books. Suddenly I feel a stab of fear for Mum and Dad. When my parents sent the carrot, I say, did they mention when they'd actually be getting here? Mother Minka looks at me sadly for a long time. Poor thing, forgetting my name was bad enough. Now she's forgotten what Mum and Dad told her as well. Felix, she says, your parents didn't send the carrot. I desperately try to see signs of bread mould madness in her eyes. It must be that. Mother Minka wouldn't lie, because if she did, she'd have to confess it to Father Ludwig. Sister Elwira put the carrot in your soup, says Mother Minka. She did it because well, the truth is she felt sorry for you. Suddenly I feel like I'm the one with bread mould madness burning inside me. That's not true, I shout. My mum and dad sent that carrot as a sign. Mother Minka doesn't get angry or violent. She just puts her big hand gently on my arm. No, Felix, she says, they didn't. Panic is swamping me. I try to pull my arm away. She holds it tight. Try and be brave, she says. I can't be brave. All I can think about is one awful thing. Mum and Dad aren't coming. We can only pray, says Mother Minka. We can only trust that God and Jesus and the Blessed Mary and our Holy Father in Rome will keep everyone safe. I can hardly breathe. Suddenly I realise this is even worse than I thought. And Adolf Hitler, I whisper. Father Ludwig says Adolf Hitler keeps us safe too. Mother Minka doesn't answer, just presses her lips together and closes her eyes. I'm glad she does, because it means she can't see what I'm thinking. There's a gang of thugs going around the country burning Jewish books. Mum and Dad, wherever in Europe they are, probably don't even know their books are in danger. I have to try and find Mum and Dad and tell them what's going on. But first I must get to the shop and hide the books. Dodie opens his eyes wide, even though we're kneeling in chapel and meant to be praying. Jewish, he says. You? I nod. What's Jewish? He says. It's too risky to try and explain all the history and geography of it. I've already spent most of this prayer telling Dodie about Mum and Dad and why I have to leave. Father Ludwig has just turned round and he's got eyes like the saint with the really good eyesight. Jewish is like Catholic, only different, I whisper. Dodie thinks about this. He gives me a sad look. I'll miss you, he whispers. Same here, I say. I give him the carrot. It's fluffy and a bit squashed, but I want him to have it because he hasn't got a mum and dad to give him one. Dodie can't believe it. Is this a whole carrot? He said. When I come back to visit, I say, I'll bring more. And turnips. I wait till everyone's gone into breakfast, then I creep up to the dormitory to pack. I pull my suitcase from under my bed and empty it out. The clothes I was wearing when I arrived here are much too small for me now, so I stuff them back into the suitcase and slide it back under the bed. Best to travel light. All that's left are the books I brought from home and the letters Mum and Dad wrote to me before the postal service started to have problems. I put the books on Dodie's bed. They're my favourite books in the whole world. The William books by Richmal Crompton that Mum and Dad used to read to me. William was their favourite when they were kids too. Even though Richmal Crompton isn't a Jewish writer, she's English. I used to think Mum and Dad were translating the words into Polish themselves, but then I found out somebody had already done it. I've always loved the William stories. He always tries to do good things, and no matter how much mess and damage he causes, no matter how much naughty he ends up being, his mum and dad never leave him. Dodie knows I'd never give these books away forever. When he finds them on his bed, he'll know I'll be back for a visit. I pick up my notebook, tear out a clean page and write a note. Dear Mother Minka, thank you very much for having me. Please don't worry, I'll be fine. If possible, can Dodie have my soup? Yours faithfully, Felix. I put my notebook and pencil and letters inside my shirt. I'm ready. I peered out the window. The sun is shining brightly. The Nazis have gone. The courtyard is empty except for a pile of smoking ash and a few charred books. If I'm quick, I can be out of here before everyone finishes breakfast. I hurry past the other beds, trying not to feel sad about going, and I'm just about to leave the door when somebody steps in through the door and blocks my way. Jankiel. Don't go, he says. I stare at him, my thoughts racing. He must have overheard me telling Dodie about leaving. I remember him asking me about making up stories. He must want me to stay and teach him how to make up stories himself. I can see he's desperate, the poor kid, desperate for something to keep the torture squad's mind off stuffing him down the toilet. You know how to make up stories already, I say. What? He says. Stories, I say. Half of St. Jadwiga's dorm's still blubbing over that story you told them while we were queuing for chapel, about all the different ways you tried to get the dead horse off your parents, cranes, tugboats, balloons. That was brilliant. Some of those girls were looking at you in that weepy, adoring way nuns look at Jesus. Really? Says Jankiel, sounding pleased. Here, I say, pulling out my notebook. Here's what a story looks like written down. Practice as much as you can and you'll be fine. I tear out a page for him. It's the story where Mum and Dad hacked their way through the jungle to a remote African village and helped mend some bookshelves. Thanks, says Jankiel. He looks so confused and grateful, I know he won't mind if I excuse myself and hurry off. I'm wrong. As I move past him, he suddenly looks desperate again and grabs my arm. Oh no, if I try and fight him to get away and he starts yelling, every nun for 100 miles around will come running. Don't go, he says. It's too dangerous. I know what he means. If the nuns see me sneaking out, I'll be history. But I've got to risk it. I pull myself out of Jankiel's grip. There are Nazis everywhere, he says. I know, I say. That's why I have to go. Jankiel screws up his face and stares at the floor. Look, he says, I can't tell you what the Nazis are doing because Mother Minka made me swear on the Bible that I wouldn't tell anyone. She doesn't want everyone upset and worried. Thanks, I say, but I know what they're doing. They're burning books. Jankiel looks like he's having a huge struggle inside himself. Finally, he gives a big sigh and his shoulders slump. Just don't go, he says. You'll regret it if you do, really regret it. For the first time I feel a jab of fear. I squash it. Thanks for the warning, I say. That vivid imagination of yours is going to be really helpful when you need to make up some more stories. He doesn't say anything. He can see I'm going. I go. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm really enjoying this book. So yeah, I'll record a few chapters that we can listen to next week. Speak to you soon. Bye.